Hello everyone, this is Professor Vishal Gupta with BUAD 425 Data Analysis for Decision Making at the USC Marshall School of Business. So this video is an addendum to the Excel Bootcamp where I'm going to show you some fun things you can do with data tables. Let's get started. So here I have the spreadsheet that we looked at in class. As a reminder to kind of motivate this example, I want to think about overbooking on an airplane. So you learned a little bit about overbooking in Ops in 311, but we're going to take a little data-driven perspective on it now. So let's pretend that Delta flies a shuttle from LAX to New York each day. The capacity of the plane is 300, and it's a very popular flight, so it always sells out, and that's why they're considering overbooking. And what they did was they recorded historically for the last year, for 2016, each day, when they had the flight, how many people didn't show up. So on the first, there were 3 no-shows. So some additional data that we have here is that the ticket price for this shuttle is pretty consistently $421. And they're going to say that you spoke to your manager and the overbooking penalty, i.e. the penalty you would have to pay a passenger who you sold a seat to that then showed up and there was no seat for them, is about $500. So if you've forgotten what all of these words mean from 311 for overbooking examples, take a look back in there and try to remind yourself from your notes. To get started, I want to first compute what is the hypothetical profit that Delta would have earned in 2016 had it chosen to overbook by 2 seats, i.e. to sell 302 seats for the flight each day. So to do that, I'm going to first add 2 columns in here so that to think about profit, I can just think about the 2 constituent bits, revenue and costs. I'm also going to add over here, just as to keep in my mind, the number of extra seats I'm actually selling. So if I'm selling 302 seats, and the plane has a capacity of 300, that means I'm overbooking by 2 seats. Okay, now back over. So what is my revenues for overbooking? My additional revenue over what I make? Well, if I'm selling 2 extra seats, and I'm making a profit of 421 for each of those seats, it seems like my additional revenue on this day is going to be 842. And of course, I'm going to go back through, and those 2 numbers I'm going to have to lock down so that they don't move when I autofill later. All right, so what are my costs? Well, my costs, that's going to depend on how many no-shows there are. So if there are more no-shows than I overbooked, then I'm great. I have plenty of seats to put everyone on the plane. And if there are fewer, then I have some trouble. I got to pay those leftover people some overbooking. So I'm going to write that with an if statement. So I'll write equals if the number of no-shows is greater than the number of extra seats that I sold. Well, that's great. Then I have plenty of seats for everybody, so I don't pay any additional costs. If, however, the number of no-shows is less than that, then I have some people that I can't fit on the plane. How many people can I not fit? Well, it's the number of people that I sold to minus the number of no-shows. And for all of those people that I can't fit, I have to pay an overbooking penalty of $500. All right, and then for each of these guys, I'm going to go through and think about, well, where do I need my dollar signs? And I'm going to go ahead and put my dollar signs in. So you can see on this first day, January 16th, if I had oversold 2 seats, since I had 3 no-shows, I didn't have any extra costs. And my profits are, of course, going to be my revenue minus my costs. And I can take those and fill them down. Just to give myself some sanity checks here, if I look here on January 6th, it was only 1 no-show, so that's bad. That means I didn't have enough people to give seats to, and I had to pay a cost here of this $500. Okay, and on here on January 8th, I had 2 no-shows. I had 0 no-shows. So there was 2 extra people that I couldn't fit on the plane, so I had a cost of $1,000. And if I want to think about my additional profit overall, I just go ahead and sum that up. Okay, so that's a nice little warm-up, a little reminder from 311. The additional profit of doing this, of selling 2 extra seats of overbooking, is about $222,000 in this example. A nice feature of this, if you remember 311, is that we haven't actually made any assumptions here about the demand distribution. Previously, we used to say things like, let's assume the demand is normal, or let's assume the demand is uniform. Here, we haven't done anything like that. We've just gone ahead and used the actual data of what happened in 2016 to make an estimate, which is nice. All right, but on the other hand, what's bad about this is that in some sense, we don't really care what the profit would have been if we sold 302 seats. We want to know what is the best number of seats to oversell. And this is where the data table functionality in Excel comes in really handy. So what I'm going to say is, let's think about different numbers we could have oversold. So we could have oversold 301, 302, 303, 304, maybe 305. I'll go ahead and extend that out to, let's say, 310. Okay. And I want to know for each of these, how much profit would I make? So for 302, I already know it would have been 222.172. And I could go hunt and peck and say, well, for 301, it's 126.086, and do that. And that seems pretty tedious. So the data table functionality instead allows me to figure this out in an easy way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first write an equal sign here to the profit. So this is the number that I would like to see under these various different scenarios. And then I'm going to go ahead and highlight this region. And I'm going to select Data, Data Table. On Windows machines, this is under the Data ribbon, under the What If Analysis ribbon, and you'll see Data Table in there. All right, if I select that, I get this funny little cryptic box. It's actually pretty confusing to decide whether or not the column input cell or the row input cell is what you want. In this case, since all of our different scenarios are going to be in a column, I want the column input. And where do I want to put this column input? I want to put it, corresponds to here, the number of seats I oversold. So 302 that's where I want to put it in the model. If I select that, let's see, Excel actually goes off and computes for each of these values of overbooking what is the number of profit that I would have. And I could have done this from 301 up to 400 and done it all in one go, or I could have done fewer or less. If I want to, I can change some of these numbers afterwards to 311, let's say, or 312, and it'll update automatically. So that's a nice way to take this model that we built and now start pushing it to see around. Even better than that, and I think where this really starts to shine is now we can start looking at what does this look like in a chart. So I'll go ahead and insert smooth scatter plot here, and we can see for this particular problem, it looks like the maximum amount of profit I get by selling about 305 seats. For 304 seats, I make a little less profit, but not that much, and for other than that, I seem to be giving up a lot. All right, now to push this even further for this example and really see what we can do with data tables, what do we think about this overbooking penalty? If you remember in 311, we talked about how this number is sort of hard to estimate. This is the dollar penalty that you expect you are incurring in ill will when you tell a passenger that they can't fly with you. That's sort of hard to estimate. Maybe it's not actually 500. Maybe it's 600. And you want to know then what is the optimal number of seats to sell. Well, if you go ahead and just change it in our model, the nice thing about it is that everything updates. And we can now see that the maximum is much closer to 304, so maybe it's a better idea to sell 304 seats as opposed to 305 before. Finally, as a last sort of challenge idea, you might think, well, why 500, why 600? Maybe there's a couple of other values you're interested in this overbooking penalty. Can you look at all of them at once? And there actually is a way to do this, to extend this data table to 2 dimensions. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. Suppose we're interested in overbooking these possible amounts. And I'll go ahead and change that last one to 310 again. And we're thinking about overbooking penalties that might be anywhere between 450 to, let's say, $650. And now over here, I'm going to do that same thing where the number I'm interested again in is the additional profit. And what I'm going to do is ask Excel to go through and fill in this table for me. So how do I do that? I'll highlight the table. Again, I'm going to go to Data, Data Table. On Windows machines, this is under What If Analysis in the ribbon, Find Data Table. Again, it's always a little confusing about which goes where. Remember, the column input cell here is the number of cells that I'm going to, number of seats I'm going to overbook, excuse me. So I'll go ahead here and say this should point to this cell here, I9. And the row input cell is going to go ahead, as it goes across the top, is going to be the overbooking penalty, which I'll put here. It's 500. I go down to that and hit enter. You'll see Excel goes ahead and fills in everything for me. As a spot check, I can check that for 500, for 302, I have 222,172, which is what my model tells me is correct. So that's a nice thing to know now. I can see across for a variety of scenarios exactly how much money I'm going to make under this model. That's a lot of insight. And I can actually push this one step further and say that if I showed this to my boss, I wouldn't show them to it quite like this. What I would do instead is I'd probably show them a picture. So I'm going to copy this data from over here, just to see it. When I paste it, I'm going to paste it just as the values only, and maybe I'll add the formatting. I'll get rid of this top cell over there. It doesn't matter so much. And I'm going to go ahead and graph this. Now we can see for all of the different types of overbooking penalties that we're interested in, 450 to 650, this is what the revenue curves look like. And what's I think interesting about this is you see that for something like 450, it looks optimal to oversell maybe 305 seats. But if you make the overbooking penalty larger, it looks like it's probably closer to 304. So probably, even though this is the optimal, a more robust choice might be for your business to actually oversell 304, because you're not giving up that much profit, but you are protecting yourself in case the overbooking penalty is much larger. All right, that's it for data tables. Again, this isn't a skill that we're necessarily going to use a lot in class, but I think it does come in handy when you're working. That's all for now, and I'll see you in another video.